Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're unpacking something we literally all go through. It's honestly one of the biggest sources of daily friction. You know, that stomach-dropping moment when you totally misread an interaction? Like, you walk away completely convinced a friend, a partner, or a coworker is just furious with you, only to find out later they were just, I don't know, tired or distracted? We've all been there. We walk around with this deeply ingrained assumption that we're these highly intuitive creatures, perfectly capable of reading the emotional weather right off someone else's face. But what if I told you that biology and neuroscience paint a totally different picture? Today, we're diving into the fascinating, kind of mind-bending neuroscience of how we process emotions. By the end of this explainer, you are going to experience a complete paradigm shift in how you look at literally every conversation you have from here on out.
Let's start with a foundational question, one that really gets at that assumption we all carry. Can you actually tell someone's emotion from their face? Now, if you're like most people, your immediate gut reaction is a resounding yes, obviously. You probably feel pretty confident that you can spot anger, sadness, or joy just by looking at the arrangement of someone's features, right? I mean, we rely on this belief constantly. We use it to navigate office politics, manage our relationships, try to protect ourselves from conflict, the whole shebang. We're essentially walking around believing our eyes are like high-res cameras, passively capturing the objective truth of the faces around us. But as we're about to see, the science firmly suggests that this confidence, it's totally misplaced.
Okay, let's dive into this. You know exactly what these visceral cues look like, don't you? The jaw thing, the eyes suddenly going flat, that one single nostril twitching. Or, and this one's the worst, that utterly devastating flat aha when you're right in the middle of telling a story. You've been there. You clock that tiny movement, that slight shift in tone, and bam, your brain just goes into overdrive. You build this whole case in your head before they've even finished their sentence. You're thinking, oh, they're pissed. They are so over this. Here we go. But here's the thing that might wreck you a little bit. To them, that nostril twitch, it might have literally just been an itch. That flat aha might have genuinely meant, keep going, I'm listening. Yet you filed it under, uh-oh, something's wrong, and now you're defensively bracing for a conflict that the other person doesn't even know is happening. Two totally different events are occurring, depending entirely on whose head it's happening in.
So, just how often are we actually getting this wrong? Well, let me hit you with a statistical shock. Back in 2019, psychologist and neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett did this massive sweeping review of over 1,000 studies looking at how faces relate to emotions. And one of her key findings centers around this staggering number, 25%. What does that actually mean? It means that people scowl, that classic angry frown, brows down, mouth tight, the exact face you picture when someone says the word angry. They only do that about 25% of the time they are actually feeling angry. Just 1 in 4 times. The other 75% of the time, an angry person's face is doing something else entirely. They might be crying, they might be smiling, or their face might just go completely blank. The biological evidence proves that our supposedly universal roadmap for reading faces is, statistically speaking, incredibly flawed.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just how absolute Dr. Barrett's conclusion is. Listen to this quote: "There is no face that reliably means angry. Not one." I really want you to let that sink in for a second. Not one single facial arrangement universally guarantees that a person is experiencing the internal emotion of anger. Not for anyone. We have to completely shatter this illusion that facial expressions are some sort of reliable, biological dictionary of feelings. If you've been relying on someone's furrowed brow to tell you if you're in trouble, you're essentially trying to read a book where the words change their meaning every single time you turn the page. So if we aren't actually reading faces, what exactly is it that we feel so certain about? What is our brain actually doing?
To answer that, we have to look under the hood at a fascinating neuroscientific concept called predictive processing. Simply put, your brain isn't a passive camera. It's a highly active forecasting engine. It doesn't just read incoming visual data, it predicts it. Your brain is constantly grabbing whatever context is just lying around. Maybe that argument you had last month, the weird tone of an email you read this morning, or even just how tired and stressed your own body is in that exact moment. It takes all of that past context, plus your current physical state, and it builds a feeling for you in real time. Basically, it guesses. It sees that nostril twitch, it consults your history and your current stress levels, and it issues a verdict. You aren't actually seeing their anger. You're seeing your brain's prediction of their anger based on a story your brain was already halfway through telling.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core misunderstanding we have about our own minds. On one side, we have reading a face, which is what we think we do. We believe it's this straightforward, linear process. We see a scowl, we decode the scowl, we understand the person is mad. It feels so objective. But on the other side, we have the actual biological reality, predicting a face. This is a highly subjective, highly internal construction project. The brain is taking a tiny visual cue, like a twitch or a blank stare, and forcefully combining with our own internal baggage to construct a reality. Same nostril twitch, same flat aha, but a completely different verdict depending on what your brain's internal predictive model expected to see. So we aren't really reacting to them, we're reacting to a simulation our brain just built for us.
Let's look at how this plays out in a real, intensely human scenario. Imagine a dad in a shop with his 5-year-old child. The kid, naturally, asks for a new toy. Suddenly, the dad snaps. Loudly, publicly, enough that other shoppers actually turn to look. Now, if we're just reading faces, we see his tight jaw, we hear his harsh tone, and we immediately label this emotion as pure anger. But here's the reality of what's happening biologically underneath. The dad cannot afford that toy. Standing in a public space, feeling like you are failing to provide for your kid, triggers an overwhelming wave of intense shame. But shame? Shame is a deeply vulnerable, almost unbearable feeling. Anger, biologically speaking, is a much faster, safer, and way more protective response. So the dad's nervous system masks that profound shame as explosive anger. The anger is what makes it to the surface for sure, but it is not the actual foundational feeling.
And there's a really tragic disconnect here. We have the kid's perspective on one side and the dad's reality on the other. The child obviously doesn't have the capacity to read the complex, hidden layers of shame off his father's face. The child only receives the outward projection, the anger. So the kid's brain files this event under, "I did something wrong, I'm bad." Meanwhile, the dad's internal reality is, "I'm failing my kid." This perfectly highlights the severe biological and, honestly, relational cost of these misreads. Because the dad's true emotion never made it to the surface, the child's brain predicts and constructs a reality based only on that aggressive mask. They're participating in the exact same event, but they're walking away with two entirely different, highly damaging emotional narratives.
So, the crucial point is, how do we actually hack this biological loop? How do we stop being victims of our brain's rapid-fire predictions? Well, here's a clear, actionable 4-step process. First, when your brain tells you, "Oh, I know exactly why they did that," you must pause. Do not act on that immediate prediction. Second, ask yourself, what happened exactly 10 seconds ago? Don't ask what's wrong with their personality, ask what objective event just occurred to trigger this. Third, and this is absolutely vital for your own emotions, check your interoception. Basically, tune into your internal body sensations. Stop focusing on what you've decided to call the feeling and ask what it actually feels like in your chest, your stomach, your jaw. Is it really anger, or is it hurt wearing an angry mask because anger just feels safer? And finally, step 4, carefully name the actual emotion based on that physical data. If you name it wrong, you stay entirely disconnected from what's actually happening in the room and inside yourself. Which brings us to our final and perhaps most important question of this explainer. The next time you feel your defenses rising because of a slight tone of voice or a fleeting look, I want you to pause and ask yourself a fundamental question. Are you reacting to their actual emotion, or are you reacting to the one your brain just built for you? Because as we've learned today, we are almost always guessing. And look, if we're going to be guessing anyway, we owe it to ourselves and to the people around us to pause, check our biology, and try to guess at the right thing.